Welcome to the InStory show. I'm Devorah Spilman, your host, and today I am thrilled to welcome InStory expert Rona Pollak. Hi, Rona.
Hi.
So Rona is going to dive into what is the power of your story and why she is committed to bring your story out in the world. She currently works using integrative therapies of dance and movement, imagination, even puppets like me, with children to help them cope with really difficult and traumatic situations that they're in. So, all right, Rona, so start us with a little bit of what happened to you when you were a kid, and why is it so important that you're bringing your story forward?
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for bringing me on and inviting me to your interview and to your show. I'm really honored to be here and to share how I found light in the darkness. So a little of my history, I came from an abusive family. There was emotional and physical abuse in my family. My parents actually, they didn't really, I mean, they saw themselves, and everything they did was for their needs. And I existed, but I didn't really exist in their eyes because I really wasn't seen. And so I felt like I was air. And being abused and also feeling like I was air, I just became invisible. And I walked around the world as if I was invisible, and I really had no traits of myself. I was like hollow, invisible and hollow. And I even remember as a child that I used to imitate people, and I used to imitate their laugh, their smile, the way they dressed, and things that they said and the way they moved, because I felt that I didn't have anything that belonged to me or my own. And actually, practically my whole life, I walked around this world thinking that I was invisible. I did have a special therapist later on in life that taught me, or together we worked with it, that I was only invisible in my eyes, that the world did see me, but I didn't let myself see that I was seen in the world. And it's like living in the shadow in the closet. Yeah. And I was very successive, and I was very out there, and I was doing things very productive. I have a family, but I was invisible in my eyes.
I love the way you describe it, and I know we're going to go into it more, but it's interesting because the previous InStory show, the theme was how to come out of hiding and dare to be seen. And your description of that, I think, fits a lot of people who maybe don't know how to say it that way. Like, it's just this visceral description that you didn't have any insides that felt seen. Like, people saw you, but you couldn't experience being seen. It's so interesting.
It's something very new, actually.
So, all right, so what do you want to say next about that? Because I have all these questions, like how did that change and what changed, but go in the order that you want to go in to kind of pull us along. Because I think a lot of people went through trauma have that experience, honestly. They just disappeared themselves to survive. And also a lot of times when you're abused, you're told don't tell. And so you become completely unseen, and then there's this outer thing that does everything, but you don't feel it. So I would love to hear the story of how you got it back.
Okay. Well, first of all, we didn't have the don't tell because, first of all, I was in denial, and there was total denial of the abuse in my home. And afterwards, when I confronted my abusers, it was like, what are you talking about? I was the evil person in this world that was making up stories. And, but that's a long story in itself. But, my whole life I was in denial. I knew I was abused. I had all the traits of a person that was abused. And I blocked out my memory in every way possible. I don't remember the good things. I don't remember the bad things. I don't remember anything. It was like I didn't have a childhood. But 11 years ago, which is not really a long time ago, something happened in my family that made me confront the subject of the abuse, and it had to come out in the open, and I had no choice. And the moment that I realized it actually visually, I mean, I fell into a big black hole in the ground, because I knew that my time was up and it's something that I'm going to have to deal with. And just physically being able
What
to
happened? Can you tell us what happened? What that was, like, without like the long version?
Yeah. What happened was that we found out that my daughter was abused by the same person that I was abused from.
Wow.
And we found that out 11 years ago. And when her story came out, I knew that I couldn't hide my story, and I had to be there for her and for myself. And actually, I found a really good therapist to help me go through these stages. But I'm going to go for a minute back to the invisible, to tell you how invisible I actually was. I didn't have a reflection in the mirror, and I could look in the mirror and it was blank. And yeah, I just looked, there was nothing there. And with this therapist and with this therapy and dealing with the abuse, it was her story and my story, and so much happening at once. But just my romance with the mirror, and as I escalated with my therapy, I slowly but slowly I could see myself in the mirror. And at first there was anger and disgust and guilt, and I hated the person that I saw, and it's really disgust. I used to see myself, and I wasn't capable. And slowly but surely I got acquainted with myself and my face in the mirror. And I even remember the first time I said, hi, Rona, or I even gave myself a compliment, which is like something that's unbelievable. And slowly but surely I had an image in the mirror, and building myself actually with the mirror, building myself, I became stronger. And what happened was actually my eyes opened and I could see all the abuse that I went through. It was all depressed, and then all of a sudden I started seeing it. And with this same therapist, and with all courage, I don't know where it came from, I also confronted the people that I've been abused from, my mother and my father. I confronted them both, and whoever, and I started getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And I think maybe it was too much, too fast, too something. And as I was getting more resilient and stronger and becoming, this. Something amazing happened. I can say it today, it was amazing, but then it was awful. I got a facial dystonia. And what happened was the muscle that controls my eyelids totally shut. So my eyes were shut and they were locked, and I couldn't open them, and I couldn't see anything. I was like blind. And if I wanted to open them, I had to, with my hands, kind of lift my eyes to see something. And also, being an abused child, and also with my attachment style, I was the person, the independent. So I didn't need help for anybody. I was that strong person who did everything by himself and did everything in this world. And all of a sudden I'm blind and I can't even walk in the street by myself. And I had to learn to ask people for help. And that was a journey in itself. And I'm so grateful for that privilege of being able today to ask for help. It's so empowering. What I thought was being that strong woman and doing everything by yourself was empowering. But today I understand that was a defense mechanism. And the real power is being able to ask for help and to being vulnerable. But that was a journey in itself. And ever since that happened to me, I've been through a healing journey trying to, I still have the facial dystonia, and you can see my eyes are kind of half shut, but I'm independent today. I can't drive a car still yet, but I can drive a bus, and I can walk in the street by myself. Not with the corona now, but I've been on this amazing healing journey. And I think it's amazing, but when my eyes closed for the second time, and this time I was literally in the darkness, because I said how to find light in the darkness. The first time my life was in the darkness, but this time I was literally in the darkness. And I think my eyes, they closed, but they stayed open inwards. Mm. And all of a sudden I could see what I couldn't see when they were open. Only when they closed, I could see inwards and see. And then what happened was, I think I had so much trauma in my body. And when my eyes closed, that was when I could somatically work with all the trauma and cleanse the trauma from my body. And so I had to stop. My whole life stopped. I had to sell my business. I was from the woman of the world, independent, all over the world, because my job was traveling all over the world. All of a sudden, I was confined to a home. And then I studied movement, and my whole journey was actually taking all the trauma from my body, because the trauma, it's the body remembers. The body remembers all the trauma. It's in your joints. It's in your bone marrow. And so as I was cleansing my body from all the trauma, slowly my eyes started opening and lifting, and all the somatic work that I did. And it's something that I deal with every day. And sometimes in the evening when the medication comes out, it's very hard for me, to open my eyes. I have a whole new life. And yeah.
So first of all, it's like amazing that like this metaphor of not being able to see yourself like manifested so physically, that and like what you said about not being able to see out allowed you to see in. I just feel like you're so like connected. It's amazing. Well, so all right, talk a little bit about now where you are with like InStory, with your story, with there are a lot of new things that you are now bringing out in the world that in like before, like a million years ago, like a million years, you wouldn't have done such a thing that you're doing now. So share a little bit about like now, like what it's like being in the light, because you're completely not in the darkness now.
Okay, even the second time I was in the darkness with my eyes closed, this time I felt that there was light in my darkness. And it's really important to find that light in the darkness, even when you have very hard moments. If you can even see the light and find, because it always, there's stories like how we grow from the bottom, from the pain, from the illness, and sometimes, when you get to the rock bottom is when you start seeing the light. And it's an opportunity. Sometimes in our pain, it's an opportunity. That's the place we grow from. But actually, one of the amazing things that happened to me was I joined InStory, and InStory came to me. It's like the InStory show. I was just one day browsing on the internet, and an InStory show came to me, and then I reached out to you. And I actually came to because I was kind of, what is my purpose? And it has to do with also the present that I'm giving in the end. But what was my purpose? And then I thought my purpose is, I've had so many people in my life that have helped me and that have given me so many gifts. And I've grown and done such amazing things with my life, because where I started and where I am today is so not trivial. And so I actually joined InStory to teach me how to tell my story. And that's what I thought it was. But InStory is so much more. And first of all, it gives you courage, and it's an amazing support group, and amazing women are in InStory. And so what happened to it and things happen without you realizing them happening. So after I joined InStory, all of a sudden, so naturally came to me a thought, and I came to my daughter and I asked her if she wants to produce a play together with our story, with her story, my story. And the relationship that we have between us, how we were once enmeshed, and slowly how we split apart and how we came back together, and our relationship today. And so we're working on a play, and it's a play without words, and it's a full-length play. And I really, really hope it's good and it will sell in international festivals, and I'll be able to travel the world again with our play. And as we were working on our play, we were asked to give a speech or a lecture to professional psychologists that work with abuse. And together we built the lecture, which was an amazing journey in itself for me and for her. And amazing things have happened to her also since we built the lecture. And after the lecture came out, wow, for me, it was the first time in my life that I felt that actually people saw me for who I am and what I am. It's not only that I let it be, I did. It's the first time with InStory that I let myself be seen from within. And that's amazing for me because I started being invisible and it came from somewhere inside. I'm ready. I want my story to be told. And I think with the play and with the lecture, it will give a lot of women or people, men, women, you know, courage. Because I think we've all been through something, something hard, something abusive, something, it doesn't matter to what extent it is, we've all been through something. And I think there's something there, both in the play and the lecture, that also gives people courage, you know, to continue, to come out with their story, to be in the light. Because when we're in the darkness, nobody sees us and we don't even see ourselves. And if I would have stayed in the darkness, I would have missed out on all the amazing things that I see today. So my purpose now is in all ways, and being part of this interview is also, for me, it's not something that comes so easy, you know, and it's showing up, it's being there and telling the story. And you don't even need to tell the story. And even with embodiment or in somatic work, you say the story doesn't matter. The story doesn't matter. It's what you do with the story. And so everybody has a story. Some are more intense, but everybody has a story, and it doesn't really matter what the story is. It could be any story. But if we can grow from our stories, and yeah, and that's my purpose.
Well, and it's so, you know, what's so powerful, Rona, is that there's, it's like, it doesn't matter what the story is. And part of it is healing from the old story. So we're not trapped in that old story. You know, your description is so powerful about how that old story locked you in this kind of invisibility and this darkness. And once you don't have to hide the old story, you can tell the old story like you did in one sentence. But what it does is it frees you to create a new story.
Definitely.
Right? And it frees you to actually share the wisdom. So now what's happening is you're sharing wisdom, right? Like you and your daughter shared wisdom for, like, why did they ask you to give that talk? Right? Why do you think they asked you?
Yeah, and that also that's, they asked us because of the wisdom and because of what we've been through. But I also just thought of another aspect of, we all think sometimes that we're alone in this world and there's nobody like us. And then we get into this sorrow and sadness, but nobody's alone in this world. And there's so many of us like us out there. Right. And if we commune together and we get courage from each other, it's like I get courage from InStory. I sit every week in InStory, and it gives me courage to be something else, because there's so many people out there just like me. And so I felt that most of my life that I was alone in this world, and it's really, really sad. And I'm really so lucky to have been able to snap out of it, or I worked really hard. It wasn't like that. But to be able to fill myself today with love, with feeling, with emotion. And it was something that once upon a time I wasn't capable of doing. As I said, I was hollow.
Wow.
And I did the motions, but I didn't have.
Right. And I'm so happy you said that, because I think you articulated so well so much of my mission and my purpose, because I think that's so true. People feel alone. And I'm always saying, why do we have to tell our stories? And I realized it's like part of my mission. I really believe we have to tell our stories. And you just said why? Because otherwise we feel so alone. And I'm sure everybody's had a moment where you told somebody your story and that person said to you, thank you. you know, a lot of times people are afraid to tell their story because I think no one wants to hear it. But there comes a point, like you're describing, where you have gained insight and wisdom, you know, and you describe it so well, because I always say, you know, you can tell the stories of the darkness once you are standing in the light.
Definitely.
And so you're such a good model for that. And your whole, the way you describe it is so, like, I can feel like it's weird, like the somatic work you did is in the language that you talk about your story, that visceral feeling, because I think that's a big piece, I think, right, of whatever
Yeah.
work you've done to heal allows you to speak. So maybe say a little bit more about that, the connection with the somatic work and the story.
Well, first, I just want to say one more thing about the play. That is why we decided, bless you, that is why we decided to do a play with no words. Because we're going to tell the story in motion. It's going to be whatever movement, or you know, in arts, and however we figure out to do it. But that's why you don't actually need the words all the time. What was the question that you asked me?
I asked you about the connection between story and movement, and it's interesting that, like, for me, I would like never do something with no words. I just love all the words of it, but but I think what you're saying is that this ability to release it from the body. You know, one of the other women in InStory who's on the show, Leslie, talks about Qigong and the work she's done to become embodied. And I think there's an integration that a lot of times the work is in the releasing out of the body that allows you to then dress it up in words also, to give it beauty through words as well as through movement. So I think they intersect. But I love because didn't you say that when you couldn't see, you went into dance?
Well, actually, yeah, well, when I got sick, it was I had nothing to do, so I didn't know what to do, and so I started studying movement dance, and it was full time, and everybody in my class was my children's age, but it was full-time dance. It was ballet and modern and contact and improvisation and everything. And the funny thing was, I had a business and I was very analytic, and I thought my body ended here. I didn't even know this existed. It also has to do with abuse, but I didn't know that I had a body. And I remember the first classes dancing, I was like a baby when they found their hands. I was like, oh my God, I have hands. I have arms. I have a body. I was like, I didn't even realize that the whole thing was connected to my head. And I've had a lot of lessons, and all of a sudden I started crying in the middle of a dance class. And then a mentor that I had that worked with somatic work, she said, did you by chance work within the joints or something? I said, yes. And she said, oh, you just released another trauma, you know. And then I realized how much trauma we have in our body, and the dancing and the movement I studied. And then I went into choreography, and I put on a show of my own, but just learning your body and learning release. And release is a kind of technique that you dance and your whole body is released. And I used to dance release like with fists. My teacher said, Rona, open your fists. And I didn't even realize it. And just to learn how to flow, or to learn how to move your body, and the little bit of movement that, you know, gives you so much inertia, whatever in English. And it's just, it's amazing what's connected to the head. It's amazing. And you know it's there.
Right. And all of this ties together with what you said about coming out of hiding and being able to be seen. And, you know, and I think it also links to the whole trusting your intuition, which also has to do with that visceral connection, getting still, feeling it in your body is a lot of what people teach. And so now here you are, all of a sudden, all of these things have opened up, and here you are on this show, making your own show, telling your story. And I hope that is inspiring our listeners.
I hope so too.
So Rona, talk a little bit about the free gift that you created and the whole concept of story and myth and this whole idea. It's a super cool thing.
Yeah, I loved it. When I studied to be a integrated facilitator, a group facilitator, my teacher once gave an exercise to do, and the present that I'm giving out is my interpretation of what she gave us, because everybody did it different. This is how I did it in the class. And what I did was I took my whole story and I took milestones of my life, and I wrote a myth. And it was, first of all, it was really, really fun because it was the first time that I could use magic and magicians and powers and gods. And I just let my imagination go wild. And it was really interesting because, first of all, it explained to me a lot of things, why they happened in my life. And like, I was born on a star, and a special star, and this star only was allowed to give a family a child every 100 years. And this child was a child that was going to refresh the family. I'm not sure how to say it in English, but how to make to make something new in the family and to cut all the ties or what was before. So like, I was born and there was abuse in my family for generations, and I just cut the abuse. After me, there's, you know, this is finished. My children already have a totally new life. But this is how I was born. And but not only that, in the story also that I wrote, I saw purpose. What was my purpose also? What was the way? Where am I going? And what am I doing? And all these important people, it was like, that were in my life, that were very influential in my life, I gave them, I thought about who they are, and I gave them their powers and how they use their powers. But first of all, my myth that I wrote is still open, and I always add on to it with new experiences that happened in my life. So it's a myth that lives. And it also, what I personally did when I wrote my myth, and I was so close to it, I like read it 100 times. I started finding subconscious messages inside my story, which was amazing for me, because after I read it so many times, I was like, I started getting messages, and then I was reading inside the lines, and then I was getting so many messages from my subconscious and from the creativity of the story, that the story was telling me a story more than I told the story. And I learned so much from just doing that one exercise. It was an exercise that I've been still adding on like 4 years to this story. Hey, maybe a book one day. No. And even just inventing the names, like the names I gave everybody. What I did was I thought of the name that I wanted to give the person, and then I kind of scrambled the letters, or I found something mythical that meant that, or, you know, even I was just very fun, creative. And I think if people do this exercise or have fun or enjoy the gift that I gave them, don't keep it to themselves. Don't keep it to yourself. Tell your story. Even if you sit with friends in the evening, I have a story to tell you, and tell your story, or share it with friends, or even on their own Facebook page, they can say, hey, I wrote a story, and share their story. And it doesn't even, you know, and what's fun about it is it's kind of makeup. You can add whatever you want to it, and you can change your story. A lot of times, you know, you can just change your reality and then look at it so different.
So I completely love this so much, because of course I'm so into story, and I create this whole thing called spiritual imagination. And what you said is so true, that if you let yourself go into that creative realm, you will discover things that came to you that you didn't even realize, like what you said about your subconscious speaking to you. Like, it's so much what we do in InStory. So it's so exciting. And I think if you allow yourself, click on the link and you'll get a PDF and read it, and then give yourself the time that Rona tells you to just let it come through you. Like, you know, write without stopping and go into that magical realm. And look, right now we're all in this sort of alternate reality, because the coronavirus is happening and we're at home. And like, so for some people it's more crazy because your kids are home, but whatever it is, give yourself this wondrous moment for you. So click the link, get the PDF, then read through it all, and give yourself some time to go into this magical realm. And if you need
It
our
could
help,
be,
we'll be there to help you.
right. And it could just be 3-4 pages. You don't have to go into this, and big long book story. No, it's just a
No,
story.
no, no, no. Just a flow process. It doesn't matter how long it takes, but what's important is that you let that
Exactly.
super fun flow process happen to you. I say
Right.
a lot of times, I think we're all so starved to be in that realm of imagination. It's just the funnest, most nourishing thing, and people come into InStory, they'll say, well, is it going to be a lot of work? It's like, no, it's going to be a lot of fun. No, what do you mean?
Definitely.
Like I said, it's like unschooling. We're unschooling ourselves. And in a way, the world is in this unschooling moment where we're like having to shed all of our old ways. And something new is calling us forward. So for all of you who are feeling that something new is calling you forward, get Rona's page, try it out, and look, she'll come into the InStory Show Facebook group, and you guys can come pop in there and ask for help, reach out, connect. One of the things you said, Rona, that's so important is that you learned from your illness how to ask for help. And when we did a whole class on it in the InStory way, that was one of the things that we did a whole thing on asking, and we were all like, oh my gosh, we learned how not to ask, and now we're learning how to ask. So ask for help if you need it. Stay connected. Yes. Trust what Rona's saying, that you can tell your story too. So we're going to wrap up, but Rona, leave us with a few last words of inspiration. A few last thoughts.
Never give up. Always try to find that light in the darkness, because it's there. You just have to seek to find it, even though you might think the whole world cave in and you're in a big depression or you're in a bad place. There's always that little something you can think of. It can come from nature, it can come from an animal, it can come from just anything you have in your home, or even a TV. It could be anything, but just try to find that little light and something to give you a little hope until you be able to see the big light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to remember, you are light.
And don't be there alone. Always reach out to get help.
Right. Right. That was a big thing that you said too, because one of the things about being part of the InStory way that whole year is that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Right? You're not alone. And it's very hard to bring this deeper part out without somebody holding that energetic space, because otherwise it's like, not doing it. So thank you, Rona. You're such an inspiration.
Thank you. Thank you.
So everybody jump in the Facebook group, click the link, get Rona's free gift, write your story, reach out to either of us if you want more help bringing your story out in the world. And as I always say in farewell, remember, go out in the world, share your story, live your purpose, and be a blessing. Bye, everybody.
Bye.